The Verdict with World Pools.
Hello everybody. In this week's edition of The Verdict, we'll be having a look at races from the middle of last week, where we will go to Salisbury, Kempton and Gowran Park, and then to the Curragh on Saturday afternoon. But it's at Salisbury where we get underway with a couple of races for you. This was on Wednesday. It was a big day for them. They had a really nice listed race at 4:30, won by Miss Justice in quite a fast time. I'm going to concentrate on Fiveways, who won over 6 furlongs in a time of 1:14.72, 2.82 above the Racing Post standard. And I also like the performance of Morris Dancer in the 3:30s, a nice 2-year-old. It wasn't the best time on the card, but the reason we want to look at it is because he's got a sharp turn of foot. We'll highlight that later. Let's have a look at the RaceiQ time indexes for the meeting. These are interesting, for they're very low. The meeting average is 3.8 on ground described as good to firm, good in places. Now, we had some evenly run contests, so we should have got better scores than we got, and therefore the inference is that the ground was slower than good to firm. I'd be going good, I think, for the whole meeting. The scores for the races in focus: Fiveways in the first race, a 4.8 and a 2.9 later on for that nice 2-year-old. 5.6 was the best time over a mile and a quarter, and that was in the listed contest. So, ground slightly slower than advertised nonetheless. Horses were finishing their races pretty well according to the data. We start with Fiveways, a really interesting horse who has got tons of speed. He won this novice stakes from stall 10, beat Crown of Light from 7, and third Noble Vow from stall number 3. Fourth fastest to 20 miles an hour, this fellow. It took 2.48 seconds, but soon was on the bridle and careering to the front. Look at his second furlong, 11.82, where he hit his top speed in the whole race of 40.18 miles an hour. He did a lot of running early on to get across from that disadvantageous wide draw and then to dominate the race on the rail thereafter. So he's used up a lot of gas early on in the race, yet he is still able to finish the race relatively strongly to his opponents, which I think marks him out as being 100 horse plus at this stage of his career, and I think he's going to be a very useful sprinter to follow. He carved out even fractions. For example, third furlong 11.85 was par, fourth furlong 11.91, and then the fifth furlong there fast at 11.84. He really picked up through that penultimate furlong. That's impressive given the fuel he used early on. In the 12.96 final furlong, he was the only horse to go under 13 seconds for that. That gave him an FSP almost bang on par, 100.45, and the par was just over 100. So he was nicely rated out in front. He displayed loads of early pace, and he was able to sustain that pace all the way to the line. His fastest furlong being early on in the contest, and that meant that all of the field were dragged to their fastest furlong through the second furlong. But this is a dominant sprinting performance from this horse, the only horse in the race to be able to run a par sectional for the final furlong off those quick early fractions. Everything else ran slow final furlongs compared to the winner. 24.8 his final couple of furlongs, 25.25 for the runner-up. He's a real interesting horse by Kamiko, out of a Mason mare. He does hit the ground quite hard if you look at how he moves in the closing stages. He had a strides per second data of 2.39, and that was just about the highest in the race. Noble Vow, 2.41 strides per second, but hits the ground quite hard, spins his wheels quite quickly. That'll be the Mason effect, I think, in his pedigree, this progeny of Mason liking cut in the ground. But I think he is a very promising sprinter for the future. Remember the name, Fiveways. Okay, This is the RaceiQ summary graphic, and you can see the second furlong that I referred to, every single horse was fastest through that, bar 3 furlongs for Thanos, quick there with an 11.64. But really, this race was shaped in the early part of the contest. 11.28 for Fiveways from that wide stall to get to the front. He got over 40 miles an hour, the only horse to do so at that point, and he sustained that, coming home evenly with an FSP of 100.45. Everything else finishing tied. They're all under 100. They're all finishing tied. They're all being dragged along by Fiveways and simply could not live with him. I really like him as a sprinter for next season. Now, if the Fiveways performance was about sustained speed through a sprinting contest, what we're going to look at now is a sharp turn of foot, courtesy of Morris Dancer in the listed Stonehenge Stakes. Here's a reminder of the final time that he produced, courtesy of the RaceiQ Time Index. It was 2.9, the meeting average 3.8. So as a time analysis, you'd have to say this was quite a slow time, but it's not the overall time that really matters. It's what he achieved within the race. So let's have a look at that right now and see what he did. We only had 3 runners in this particular contest. We had Morris Dancer winning from 3, A Bit of Spirit from 2, Mystic Moment winning from stall number 1. The 2 vanquished horses in this race won 3 races between them in their careers, and they are undone by a horse with a fine turn of speed. He needed it because the early gallop was not frenetic. It was A Bit of Speed who took them along. 14.19, 12.74, 12.65, 12.58. It wasn't mad early on, and you can see A Bit of Speed wants to go faster. He's a little bit keen on the lead. The winner, he got out of the stalls okay, 2.95 seconds to 20 miles an hour, second fastest, and he sat second in the race. But the way this race was run, just through par sectionals in the early part of the contest, with A Bit of Speed showing too much speed early on, doing too much. You can see him reefing and pulling there. It was going to be about quickening up. And this winner really quickens in fine style to record 24.81 through the final couple of furlongs. Doesn't tell the full tale though. I'll take you through some of his sectionals. The 5th furlong, 12.3. The 6th furlong, a bit quicker, 12.13. And then he suddenly goes. It's his penultimate furlong that seals the deal here. A sharp turn of foot, 11.92 to take him to the front. And he is able to do that by changing his legs with alacrity. He's very quick. He can change from one leg onto the other really sharply and then quicken away from his rivals. Highlighting that for you there, it's hard to see because there he goes. He does it really quickly. He's gone from his near 4 to his off 4. That's enabled him to quicken. The shopping bag's too heavy in his right hand, so he switches that shopping bag to his left hand, and then he can carry on walking fast to dump the shopping in the car. And off he goes, away from A Bit of Speed, with Mystic Moment well beaten in 3rd. His 12.89 highlighted there in the final furlong tells us that it was a fast furlong as against par. The other 2 horses were slow, really, 13.29, 13.72. They couldn't live with the turn of speed that Morris Dancer showed here. Now, he's a big individual. He's a son of Palace Pier, and there's going to be a lot more to come from him, I think. I think he's got a lot of physical development to come, this fella. He's still got a lot of learning to do, but he's put away 2 rivals who've shown a decent level of form, who've won races between them, and he's put them away really well amidst greenness, hanging to his right a little bit and carrying his head a bit proud as well. But he has got that ability, when it really matters, to change his legs and fly away from his rivals. He's got some big entries. You'd expect that given connections. He's in the Champagne. Dewhurst as well would be perhaps a possibility as far as he's concerned. This was over a mile though, so perhaps they'll want to keep him to that trip. Maybe the 7 furlongs of the Dewhurst might be too sharp, but he's not devoid of speed, as that penultimate furlong showed, of 11.92. I think when he grows up a bit, he's going to be a very useful racehorse. He's certainly up to winning a group race, there's no doubt about that. So let's have a look at what he achieved according to the RaceiQ data, and we'll just look at the actual sectionals. And you can see A Bit of Spirit took them along. The numbers in the brackets is the position the horse was in the race. Took them along A Bit of Speed. Tracking in second was Morris Dancer. Just through basically par sectionals. They just went evenly. And then you can see where he turned on the afterburners, that 7th furlong where it goes green. He fires a fast furlong of 11.92. He's fast again as he hits the line well with a 12.89, way too much for his rivals. I think listed races are a thing of the past for Maurice Dancer now. More to come from him. We're going to stick with the action on Wednesday now, take you from Salisbury to Gowran Park. Let's have a look at the winners and times on that day. They were pretty good, these times, you know. The ground was officially described as being good to firm in places. It certainly was pretty close to good to firm, I think, looking at the times produced. And we had Naomi LaPaglia going under standard, 0.8 under the Racing Post standard at 158.9 over 1 mile, 1.5 furlongs. And that's the race that I'm very much interested in. Let's put these times in context and use the RaceiQ time index to do so. And you can see that the meeting average was 8.1. Now, remember when we had Salisbury, we were talking about just under 4, 3.8 at Salisbury. But here, 8.1, suggesting that in some of these evenly run races, we got a good score because the ground was, as described, I think it was good to firm in places, possibly more good to firm. And the race that we look at garnered a 9.9 out of 10 score, along with the opening contest as well. So fast ground and good times at Gowran on Wednesday. Let's pay attention to that listed contest. It was fillies and mares, and it was over 9.5 furlongs. And we'll pick them up in a moment because the angle's a bit difficult to do so from the stalls. But Naomi LaPaglia came from 3, Madame Celeste from 6, and Terima, who is a big eye catcher for me. Keep an eye on Terima through the race there, sat in 3rd spot at the current point in time. So, roll it along. You see that the break speed for the winner, well, quick. She was pretty quick into stride, 2.43 seconds, fastest into stride. And then just taken back and just given time to settle in behind a pace that was quite quick in the early part of it. Soft winds took them along, and it was quite a strong gallop. They were 11.61 for the 2nd furlong. That's fast. 12.17 and then 13.7 as they just went uphill. So the early pace was pretty fast, and this was a race in the end where every single horse in the contest finished quite slowly. Look at Terima, who's my eye catcher here, about 4th last at this stage, number 11, out wide, gets forced really wide around this long sweeping bend, and then makes a big middle move in the race to try and get in contention, and then flattens out. I think Terima is definitely a horse to follow going forward. Fastest through the 6th furlong, fastest through the 7th furlong. There's Terima, highlighted towards the rear. Remember, the fastest horse in the race, 6th and 7th furlong. Now let's concentrate on Naomi LaPaglia, the winner. The 6th furlong was her fastest furlong in the race. She went 11.36 and 11.43 when she's quickening just off the bend for the 7th furlong. So the pace in this race really was sort of mid-race, really. They went quite hard early on, then they kicked on, and then it was a bit of a slow finish. Look at the ground Terima's made up towards the outside with those 2 fast furlongs, furlong 6 and 7, but she can't go on thereafter. She had too much to do, and she made a premature move. She went too soon, really, to chase the leaders, and then got tired. But she's going to be winning a race in the near future. Terima for your Racing TV tracker, but Naomi LaPaglia running on strongly. A finishing speed percentage over 100, 105.15, just under par. Par's quite high at Gowran, 106.17 over this trip. So that means they normally finish quite strongly at Gowran. But here they went hard early on, and it meant they couldn't get a par FSP finish. Nonetheless, she finished off quite well with 105.15. Next best in the race was Terima with 104.49. Despite making that big mid-race move. Terima's featured on the verdict before when she won on her debut, and I think there's going to be an awful lot more to come from her. But Naomi LaPaglia, given how the way this race was run and how reasonably well she finished the contest, you'd think she certainly would stay another half furlong or more, and she bounces back to form here after a modest effort last time up, and there might be more to come from her this autumn. So let's just sum that up. But you can see those finishing speed percentages, they're over 100. Don't get carried away with them though, because par is 0.76. They normally go steady at Gowran and they normally finish off quite strongly. So you might have expected a slightly stronger finish, but I think it's quite a good effort. I think she's finished pretty well, given the early gallop and given that mid-race injection of speed, which you can see through furlong 6, all of those first 4 firing their fastest furlong in the 6th furlong and reaching their top speed in the 6th furlong as well. So strongly run race. They got racing too soon. They finished a bit tired, but Naomi Paglia saw it out best. Tarima for your tracker. We're going to stick with the action on Wednesday. We're going to take you to the evening hour and go to Kempton Park and have a look at the winners from the night there. All these times are reasonably good. I think perhaps the all-weather track was not standard to slow, perhaps more standard, but not too bad times really. Pearl is the race I'm going to have a look at. There was a 1.5 mile race, 6.92 above Racing Post standard. You tend to get that over a 1.5 miles at Kempton. Over the same trip, Wine Dark Sea was quicker at 8.15. The best time was Grand Traverse in the 7.15. But Perla was a really interesting performance. Let's have a look at those times in terms of the RaceiQ time index. Meeting average wasn't great. It was 4.1. It was okay. 3.7 for Perla. So not a very good time overall, but a very interesting performance, which we'll highlight now as we take them from the stalls for what was a novice stakes for fillies. And Perla came from stall number 5. Elmer Geith was from 6. Gold Penny was from stall number 1. Now, I don't think this is a particularly strong contest, but I like the way Perla did this. It's kind of contrary to her pedigree, really. She's got a stamina-laden pedigree. She's by See the Stars out of a Duke of Marmalade mare who won up to 15 furlongs in her career. So what we've got is a filly who's bred to stay forever. She'll stay 2 miles, you'd have thought, on pedigree. Yet this turned into a sprint, and she was able to sprint well enough to win. 2.38 seconds it took her to get to 20 miles an hour. She was quickest away and then reined back by James Doyle and sat in 3rd spot in the early part of this contest. Elmer Geith was prominent. That's the horse in the yellow colours, just going on at this stage of the contest. And you can see James Doyle was anxious to be pretty close on Perla early on. Now, not a lot happens down the back here at Kempton in what was a steadily run affair. That's the point to make here. This wasn't a test of stamina, which is what Perla wants, really, according to her pedigree. Further she goes, the better, and the harder they go, the better. But they went pretty steady. I'll give you some of these mid-race sections. They're slow against par. 13.17, 13.59, 13.67. The 6th furlong, you could think it was a jump race, 13.89, and then 13.72. And round the bend, they even managed to go slower than that. They went at 14.03 before the sprint started, before the burn-up began. And you know it's a burn-up. You don't need to watch the race. You can look at the figures. Look at the finishing speed percentage. 112.75 as against a par of 105.91. The par's high. The par's over 100. Because over a 1.5 miles at Kempton, they tend to go steady in sprint. They don't normally go this steady. Perla's handily placed now. Will come home over 12% quicker in the final 3 furlongs than she ran the rest of the race to record 35.23, runner-up 35.94. She's beginning to quicken. They're beginning to wind it up. She's gone to the front smoothly now. Her 3 final furlongs worthy of note. 11.98. She's just doing 11.44, and then she's doing 11.81. She's very fast through the 11th furlong. That's the penultimate furlong, 11.44. And then she's very fast in the last, 11.81. Well, you can say, well, look, she should be. They've crawled, they've saved energy, they've got loads of fuel when they turn for home, and she's able to utilise that fuel and sprint for home. But she's still been able to pull a good way clear of her nearest pursuer. 5 lengths was the official margin, and half a length further back to the 3rd. They too were saving energy, they too were saving petrol, but they couldn't sprint like she did. But the most impressive thing about this is not the raw data. It's what she's done in accordance with her pedigree. As I mentioned at the top of this race, she's got loads and loads of stamina in it, but she's got speed. She's displayed that speed here, 11.44 and 11.81 for her last 2 furlongs. To a degree, she's revealed a potent weapon that she's got, which will be really, really effective when she goes over further and gets a stronger gallop. With that in mind, it is very interesting that she holds an entry in the Kipco Fillies and Mares at Ascot in October. She's got a high knee curl, softish ground will suit her in October. She's not out of the way for a race like that, you would have thought, later this year, given her lovely pedigree and the speed she showed there. Let's sum it up. Here are her sectionals. I wanted to show you this just to highlight how steady it was through the early part of the race. And you can see from those numbers, they're all above 13 seconds from 2 furlongs, right the way down until we get to that burn up at the Marner quarter point when she went 11.98, then even quicker, 11.44 and 11.81. A decent turn of foot for a horse with tons of stamina. She's going to be a very interesting filly this autumn. Those were some interesting performances midweek. Let's move on to the weekend now and go to the Curragh. Got a couple of races we want to have a look at from there on Saturday afternoon. Here are the times on a day when the ground was described as being good. I don't think that's too far off how it actually rode. And we had some really good racing. Ipanema Queen is the race that's going to come under focus firstly, and then we'll have a look at Zaran in the Royal Whip at 3:27. It was a good time from Queen of Mugan in the 4:02 over 6 furlongs. Might be a horse to keep a close eye on. But let's have a look at Ipanema Queen and Zaran in the context of the programme. And RaceiQ Time Index will give us the following. Ipanema Queen, 8.7. It's the best time on the card when equated against previous races over this trip, at this track, on this ground. And 6.8 for the Royal Whip, in which we saw Los Angeles return after running in the Prince of Wales Stakes at Royal Ascot. We'll get to him in a bit, but we'll start with Ipanema Queen. Stall number 3 from Beats Kansas from 6 and Namid from stall number 2. This was a listed contest producing a fast time courtesy of a fast early gallop. Break speed, winner, 2.76 seconds, third fastest into stride and tracking the pace early on, but was pretty prominent after the first furlong, just nudging in front. And the second furlong was her fastest furlong in the race of 10.45 seconds. And that was just about replicated by every runner. They were really winging along early on and taking each other on too. Look for Kansas in behind, just coming towards the stand side now under Ryan Moore, horse number 2. This is quite an eye-catcher in the way that he came home in the race. He finished off really well. 2 of the final 3 furlongs, he was actually quicker than the winner. The winner had already stolen a march, Ipanema Queen, 12.09, 5th furlong, rated as slow, getting tired, tying up and getting caught, but clinging on late on from Kansas. It's quite interesting, the final 2 furlong splits here, according to the RaceiQ data. 23.08, Ipanema Queen. Kansas, 22.85. Basically just had a bit too much to do, just couldn't quite get to Ipanema Queen, who went first and just managed to hang on. 5 furlongs is clearly what Ipanema Queen wants. She's clearly all about speed, as she showed early on in the race with that second furlong of 10.45. And I don't think they'll be going 6 furlongs with her again. With Kansas, however, I think they will now. I think they've got 6 furlongs as a viable option for him going forward. He's shown an awful lot of speed earlier on in his career, but I think possibly they might go 6 furlongs with him next. This was quite an evenly run race. Finishing speed percentage 101.13, not far off par. So they've gone quite strongly early on. Ipanema Queen's flashed loads of speed and she's just hung on. Right. This is evidence of that early speed from her. In third through the first furlong with a 14.11. Then she's hit the front, 10.45. But it was a contested lead, 3 of them taking each other on. And then she's still in front, 10.71. She's getting tired, 11. She's gone from a 10.71 halfway to 11. She's slowing down. Then at 12.09, she's slowing down. And compare those with the one underneath. Look at Kansas. 10.96, only horse under 11 seconds penultimate furlong, and in 11.88 in the last furlong, only horse under 12 seconds. So he's really winged home Kansas, but he couldn't get there in time. We've got one more race to look at this week in the verdict, and it is the Royal Whip Stakes, the Group 3 from the Curragh on Saturday afternoon. To remind you of the time index that was achieved by the winner Zaran over this 10 furlong trip. It was 6.8. 8, and it was bang on average. Average was 6.8 for the meeting. There's a number of times that were better than the one produced here by Gowran, and that's courtesy of how the race was run, which is what we'll have a look at now as we take it from the start. Gowran continuing a very good run for the Johnny Murtagh team, came from stall 2. Tangapore came from stall 1 in second. Galen from 5 was third, and Los Angeles coming back after Royal Ascot, he was 4th, and he came from stall number 3. There's the 3 of them all highlighted. Interesting early position for Gowran because he's on the rail behind horses, and it causes him to get some trouble in running late in the piece, and that's because he wasn't very quickly into stride. Look, 6th fastest into stride. It was slow, that, isn't it? 3.42 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour, very tardily into stride, but sat there in 3rd off what in the early part of the race is a very modest gallop. Los Angeles sat in 4th place. You remember, he contested a really strong gallop in the Prince of Wales Stakes, an overly strong gallop. That didn't suit him. He used up all of his petrol, all of his energy, and he weakened late on. This is a different race for Los Angeles, steadily run, and it's a fast finish. And that didn't suit him either. So neither of these 2 races have necessarily suited him, but he probably needed this, and there's going to be more to come from him. Early sectionals, steady away, 15.69 out of the stalls, then 12.85, 12.67, 13.28, 13.13. That's from Tangapore, who made the running. So he's only taken them along at a modest-ish gallop out in front, and this is going to turn into a bit of a sprint over the final 3 furlongs, as evidenced by finishing speed percentage, 111.27%, where the par is 106.39. So the winner, down on the rail, trapped in, Ryan Moore in Los Angeles, trying to keep Gowran in against the rail at this point, has come home 11.27% quicker in the final 3 furlongs than the early part of the race. Look at the trouble he's getting here, Gowran, hanging a bit, got no room, can't get out, being held in and looking for room, but ultimately Tangapore comes off the rail, and it allows Gowran to get in there and then quicken up, and quicken this horse does. 11.09, a fast furlong through the 9th furlong, the penultimate, and a very fast final furlong against par of 11.76. So once he's out of trouble, what's won him this race is a really good turn of foot. It's not about stamina. He's not stayed on stronger than his rivals. He's got a turn of foot which has got him out of a hole, out of a pocket. He's got to the rail, and now he's quickened, and that's what has enabled him to win. It's from the 2 to the 1 here. He's quickening through that gap, and that's what's won him the race. Los Angeles, he's run perfectly respectably as far as I'm concerned. He ran an 11.1 in the 9th furlong when the winner was going 11.09. That's a pretty quick furlong from Los Angeles. Then he got tired in the last furlong, 12.07, compared to the winner, 11.76. So he's flashed plenty of speed, Los Angeles. His final 3 furlongs, all faster than par. But he doesn't want to burn up like that. That doesn't suit him, really. He wants a strongly run gallop. He wants an evenly run race to bring out the best in him, and he probably needed this anyway. So I'm pretty sure that the Aidan O'Brien team will be very pleased with the way he's shaped the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, his primary target going forward. But Gowran is going forward very quickly at the moment for the Johnny Murtagh team. And when we see this horse again, remember, he's got a very sharp turn of foot, and that's what won him this particular race once he could get a bit of running room against the rail. But there's no way you should give up on Los Angeles after this particular performance, because the data is really positive about him, but he doesn't want a slowly run race that turns into a sprint. Okay, let's sum this up with the RaceiQ data then. This is just basically a summary of this Royal Whip. You can see how fast some of the horses finished, and even Los Angeles, look, he didn't finish that badly. 110.58 is finishing speed percentage. Second best in the race, 111.27 for Gowran. He's done 11.1 in the penultimate furlong. Look, 11.09 for Gowran. So he's quickened up pretty well, Los Angeles. He's just got tired in the final furlong, entitled to do so after a break after running at Royal Ascot in the Prince of Wales Stakes. So he's all there still. I think the engine's all intact as far as he's concerned, but Gowran, a very interesting horse going forward over 10 furlongs. He has a potent turn of foot. That's it for this week's edition of The Verdict. I hope you enjoyed looking back on those 6 races. Plenty of interest there, I think, particularly Terima going forward. It was a real eye-catcher in that listed contest at Gowran Park. Stick her in your Racing TV tracker. She's one to be with next time out. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
The Verdict with World Pool. Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.